Welcome to this Gestalt IT Tech Talk, brought to you by Fortinet. I'm Brian Knutson. I am a technologist within the IT infrastructure field. Been around for a number of years, doing a lot of different things, and I've been around several of the Tech Field Day events that Gestalt IT puts on. So you can look for me on many of those. I'm here today for Gestalt IT, and I'm joined by Director of Product Marketing for Fortinet, Kimberly Bejan. Kimberly, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for having me, Brian. I am the Director of Product Marketing at Fortinet for our FortiGates and our network operations product portfolio, where this is exactly where digital experience monitoring fits within our portfolio.
Awesome. We're really glad to have you. So we are here to talk about Fortinet's FortiMonitor product specifically, but I'd like to take a step back and talk a little bit about the market that FortiMonitor fits into. What can you tell us about digital experience monitoring, or DEM?
Perfect question. We see a lot in the way where people really understand what DEM is, and others have no idea that this is even a space that they could be leveraging. And I think the naming kind of throws people off too. Like digital experience monitoring is like, well, is that a marketing thing or right? Where does it go to? But it's really what we all know about in performance monitoring tools, right? We've all had a network performance monitoring solution. Infrastructure is another performance monitoring tool solution that people put in, and then application performance monitoring. And that's, traditional. Every company's had that. And that's because we had users connecting in our headquarters and then they backhauled all that traffic into the data center. So here I can now put a nice performance monitoring tool to how are my servers doing over here? How's my network doing over there? And of course, as a developer for applications, like how's my application performing? Those days are long gone. We don't connect into the office all the time. We don't host the applications out of our data centers, but a lot of people still have those performance monitoring tools right there in their data center, right? So they're losing a lot of visibility into what a user experience is, and that's really why they mean this. It's the digital user experience and monitoring. So now you can really start to see how does that employee or even customer experience your brand through your applications or your employees to get the different applications they need to get their work done. What does that experience look like from no matter where they connect, right? Do I come in the office 2 days a week and I work from home 3 days a week? Do I go to a coffee shop and meet people for lunch and all these fun things? And I'm turning my laptop on for that and doing a little bit of work. To what applications do I need? Is it my company's application that runs my business? Or is it applications that my finance team needs and my HR team needs? And once upon a time, SaaS applications were shadow IT. That is not the case. SaaS applications run your business now. Everybody has them, everybody needs them. And if these employees can't get access to them, things come to a halt really fast.
Yeah, that's so true these days, and that's an important part about this whole topic. I think is the fact that you can't control every aspect of it anymore, and that has definitely changed the market. And what DEM sounds like is at its basic, it's observing the complete series of steps that happen from the end user to the application, including the browser and everything else that's going on that can affect that experience. And I love that shift towards um, let's make sure that the user's experience is the best it can be, not just the application itself, not just about how it's performing. But it does fit into a broader ecosystem. The DEM piece fits into a broader ecosystem that we talk about observability, we talk about application performance monitoring, and I know DEM is different than that. It's very um, those other two are much broader areas, and sometimes don't always get used the same way. Marketing does what marketing does, and sometimes things are a little bit different. So can you maybe help us understand a little bit about how DEM differentiates from those other practices?
That's a biggest question I think we get from a lot of customers. They think they can have one tool that's going to maybe do everything from my development team all the way down to my IT team and in between, right? But there is different needs and requirements. So one thing about in the market I should help explain to is like what we know of NPM and what we know of ITIM, that's really where DEM sits more into, and it's really helping those IT teams. Remember the time where you get a complaint about something to be, oh, it's not my problem, it must be the application, right? In the meantime, you've got a DevOps team who's going, I've got to inject code into this application so I can see what's going on. And now that APM has become observability because it's gotten so much more robust. It also does look down at the server levels, but DEM and the network performance also will look at these server levels. So it's a combination of things. So I think the best way to help segregate what these two things are, observability was APM. With ITIM, it's become observability. It's really for DevOps teams. If you're developing code and you need to see every little step through the way and understand where your stack might be having some problems, that's the solution that you need to gain that full observability. And it makes sense that they use the word observability, right? But in the network world and that stage, we've always been able to observe the network. And I think that's where you'll see some DEM people saying, oh, it's network observability. It's like, turn on a trace. I've observed everything. So it's where does that balance? So ITIM, that user component, and the network is really where DEM and they geared to the IT teams.
Yeah, and that's again, it's important to understand that differentiation, that you're getting a more complete picture, and it's not just one aspect of it. But the term observability gets used in so many different ways that I'm kind of glad that you're moving away from that term, because it kind of gets abused in a lot of different places.
It's muddy. It gets muddy.
Yeah,
Everybody using it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And another one of those shifts that goes along with this, I think, is it is becoming, ultimately this all comes down to the business, right? It's about making sure the business is getting the services it needs. It's making sure that the people that provide the business, the income, the execution, our customers, our clients, are getting what they need.
Right.
And that's causing a shift around this application monitoring experience to more of the DEM approach to things. But how we measure it is important too. And traditionally, we've been used to doing service level agreements, traditionally, to measure applications, to make sure that, hey, we commit to this certain level, and if it goes below that, there's some sort of recompense for that. But that was primarily focused on availability, transactions across some time period. Depended on the application and the situation there. But measuring the experience from the end user's experience is definitely a different type of measurement, a different way of doing things, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. I mean, SLAs, we all know what they are. Everybody's lived by SLAs. You hold vendors accountable to SLAs. There's no real SLAs when it comes to SaaS applications either, right? And it can be up. And in a lot of cases, that's why APM comes a little bit more in the picture. Applications could be up and you can get to it, but then you move down into the stack of the code and all of a sudden something doesn't go right and that experience starts to go bad. And that's where APM can help you on those components. They can't help you in a SaaS environment at all. They have no visibility unless they're the SaaS vendor themselves, right? There's no way that you as a business are going to understand, is Zoom and Teams performing the same, and is it my Salesforce applications? You don't gain that from an APM respective tool. You need that from a DEM level tool. So, this SLAs, it's up, it's down. But that does not, to your point, that does not tell you, is Joe having the same experience as Sally is, even though they're sitting in different floors of the same building or in the same, geographical regional area? Do they have that same level of experience? That's where XLAs is XLAs, which is the experience level agreements. So you can't set them as stone because SLAs are very quantifiable. Is it up? Is it down? Is the speeds the feeds, right? Am I getting this? That's a very defined level. When you get into that user experience, now it gets a little bit softer in what can you actually measure. But it is qualifying metrics that you want to be capturing onto. And you'll see a lot of SaaS applications are actually doing that in some little way. You might have used a different application. As you go to log off, you'll get your 5 little stars, like, how was your experience, right? They're using this as a little bit of a scoring mechanism to get some value point there. But you, as the IT person who needs to make sure these applications are up for your employees, they don't get that same visibility. So this is where DEM gives them this user's PC is working fine on the 3rd floor, and then these PCs down on the 4th floor, up on the 4th floor, are not having the same experience. Is it the Wi-Fi? Is it different access points they're going through? I mean, who knows what's going on? Or when Sally takes that laptop and goes home, is she having the same experience or a better experience when she's not in the office? So these kind of scorings and metrics are what DEM will really help you understand, so that you can start looking things through the lens of XLAs. How are my users getting that experience? Because SLAs just don't cut the mark to help you understand that.
Yeah, I think that's the key. And we've anybody who's used a cloud service has seen, oh, it's up. What do you mean? There's no problem. But you've got hundreds of users calling in, and I've seen both ends of the spectrum. Is that, well, we met our SLA, so there's nothing we can do for you. Is not a good end user experience in that regard. As businesses
You
do
can have as many
consider
nines
to,
as you want. Yeah, you can have as many nines as you want. But if I can
yeah,
log in and then it starts to fail when I do 1 or 2 things, that's
yep.
still not meeting my needs. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I love this shift from SLA to XLA. As businesses start to make that shift, like what are some of the key things that you've seen customers do as they implement the DEM and they start to measure their actual experience? Like what are some of the tricks? What are some of the things that they do to help make that shift?
Well, that's a good point. And I think it all real stems down to the vantage points that you get, right? So understanding, how do I get these different views to put that together? Because you're not going to go and ask Joe versus Sally, how was your day today? That's not something that you're going to do. You need to understand when they're working in general, are they starting to have problems? And you want to get ahead of where potential problems are before they have to come to you and say, I can't get to this, or I'm in, and then the sessions freezes, or whatever their case may be. You need to have a better understanding and visibility into that. And that comes down to same problem IT has always had. How do you get to the root cause? Where do you start narrowing out the noise and get to the data that's most relevant to you, right? So we call that, it's actually from collecting various telemetry from different angles, but then it's how it's brought together to give those IT teams that vantage point. So think about your data. You can get data from what we have global POPs present. So we'll run tracing and synthetic tracing across different POP areas. We'll then also take it from an end user's agent. So there's a client, it's a unit, we'll do unifying clients down on the employees' laptops. You can't do that for your customers, but you certainly can do that for your employees. In your office location, so you may have some campus headquarters, some branches, all your various locations, and where you're in your data center as well. You can collect data from there and run synthetics there. And then, specifically with Fortinet customers, if they've implemented our SD-WAN, which is a huge component of our business, we actually give another vantage points by testing across those various links. So now when before a user can report a problem, you now can narrow out the noise. Okay, it's not happening at my office. It's happening to maybe a service provider in a certain geographical region. You can start to see and limit that down, because you can see Joe and Sally are both in the office and they're fine, but Steve and Larry are working at home and they're in this one particular area. They're having the problem. So now you can start begin to limit down. It could still be Larry's got too many things running on a machine, right? One too many. Oh, you should see my tabs. It's not good. But yeah, well, what does that look like to that end user? So now what you want a DEM agent to do is give you the visibility, but you want it to strip away the noise. That's always been the success in NPM solutions, like getting to the root cause. Please stop telling me about all the other little variables and let everybody start to focus in on where the problem is. So that's a lessons learned of the, performance monitoring maturing over time. DEM has really been able to take advantage of that because there's a lot of lessons learned that a lot of NPM solutions couldn't help you get to the root cause. It showed you something was wrong, but you're like, okay, it's wrong. Where did the problem go? Now these DEM and the performance monitoring tools have gotten much better to help you see that.
Yeah. You mentioned synthetic testing. I want to kind of poke at that a little bit closer. If you can give us maybe just a quick definition of what that is, and why that's such an important piece of the puzzle for FortiMonitor.
Yeah, and it's really for the whole market space, because if we didn't have synthetic transaction, we'd still be in the traditional SNMP only collection of performance monitoring. DEM and the synthetic layer takes it to the next not next notch. So think about, as you as a user, we'll pick any SaaS application or any application you want. You have to access it to a sign-on page, and then you got to log in, and then you do maybe there's certain sequences of things you'll do in that application. What synthetic transaction will do is pretty much simulating that, but doing it from all those different vantage points that I just mentioned, right? If you had SD-WAN links across each one of the links, if you're doing global hops of presence around the world, you could do it all over the world, or you could pick certain geographical. And then, of course, from your headquarters and also from your employees' laptops. So now that's what paints a picture. It's simulating what a user would do to go to these various applications and really starts narrowing down where problems are, because it's not always a global problem. More often than not, it's not a global problem. It's a slowdown performance problem in certain areas. And that's the hardest thing to root cause.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about that kind of digging in piece of things. So we've collected all this data. You've done some correlation. You've figured out, hey, we're seeing a synthetic test is slowing something, is showing a slowness here, and this particular user is having an experience issue, and we think that might be related. So it's tying those things together and saying, hey, there's something here. What does FortiMonitor do, and what do the administrators that utilize FortiMonitor do at that point?
That's a great question, and this is a little bit where we stand out much differently in a lot of ways. In FortiMonitor specifically, when we start to see a performance, now you define where you think performance levels are should be. Of course, it's in any performance monitoring tool. When we start to see these thresholds are getting hit, we start stripping away that noise. Okay, we're not going to give you a bunch of metrics for somebody in Chicago when your employees in California are the ones that are taking the hit, right? Or starting to see a problem. So we start stripping away a lot of that noise for you. But most importantly, and this is where automation comes into play, every operator who gets called in to say, we're seeing problems in California. I mean, let's say the Bay Area of California, right? We're seeing some problems there. Users starting to complain. They have to go run netstack commands, trace commands, list it. We have a standard thing that we go through, right? FortiMonitor will now do that for you. So now you're capturing the output of those commands at the time of the problem, because more often than not, you're told 5-10 minutes later and things have changed massively, and you're not making root calls based off of what was going on initially. So FortiMonitor takes and strips away all the metrics you don't need for this incident, runs all those commands for you and gets the output, and then also pulls that synthetic transaction monitoring and brings all that together in a single incident. So it's clear out the noise, show everybody, here's where your source of your problem is, and everybody gets focused on that problem and get all the noise out of your way and really get to fixing the problem faster.
Yeah, yeah, and I know there's a lot more depth to that, and as we've as I've looked into this, and you and I have discussed this, there's a ton there. I don't have a we don't have a lot of time, and so I highly recommend people go and look at the automation capabilities there. There's some really impressive stuff there that I wish we could touch on. But I want to end on this question here, and knowing Fortinet like I do, I know that integration is a key piece of buying into the Fortinet family of products and how it ties into things. I also know that no monitoring solution stands on its own, that it needs to interoperate with anything and everything that may be in that path between the user and that application. So maybe give us a real quick minute or two on how FortiMonitor plays into the ecosystem of things.
That's an excellent question. You will see a lot of some DEM will go only very vendor specific. So you have to have their infrastructure end to end. And then you see other ones that are vendor agnostic. Great on both sides. Fortinet gets to play in both of those arenas. You know, we have a very large ecosystem, right? We've got our FortiGates, what everyone is very known for. We have APs and switches. We have a ton of network and security devices that you can gain a lot of visibility into. And as I was mentioning, specifically like that SD-WAN, that does have to be Fortinet SD-WAN that we're monitoring over because that's a very specific use case, but that's only one of your vantage points. So FortiMonitor integrates into our fabric. If you've got any other Fortinet devices, you're going to gain that visibility at a much stronger level that you could do from anybody else. But at the same time, we also understand nobody's one vendor across the board. You know, you're going to have some locations are going to have vendor A and some locations are going to have vendor B. And let's be honest, there's a C and there's a D, right? There's a lot of different vendor equipment along the way. FortiMonitor is in both specific to Fortinet, but also very vendor agnostic. So that's a great form that you can, right? We have a lot of people that even if they want to go one vendor, there's M&As happening, and then they've just acquired everybody else's equipment. And you really can't claim pure end-to-end visibility if you're only looking through one lens. You have to be vendor agnostic. So yes, Monitor is very tightly integrated into our fabric. It is a very core fundamental thing of Fortinet that everything communicates among each other and shares that data across each other. And at the same time, we're vendor agnostic, so you can gain that end-to-end visibility.
Great. Well, thanks for joining me on this Gestalt IT Tech Talk. Kimberly, before we go, can you let people know how they can connect with you and find out more about FortiMonitor?
Oh, absolutely. We have a whole dedicated page on fortinet.com/DEM that gives you all the insights of FortiMonitor. And you can even do some trial. There's a free trial out there to take a look at it. And of course, you can contact us further from there.
Fantastic. As for me, you can find me online, generally at B. Knutson across most social media. I'm on LinkedIn. Just search the name and you should be able to find me pretty easily. You can also find me helping out on Tech Field Day as a delegate in a lot of different venues. So excited to talk to people more about this topic for sure. This Gestalt IT Tech Talk has been brought to you by Fortinet and Gestalt IT, your home for IT coverage from across the enterprise. I've written an article on this video, which you can find on gestaltit.com. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to Gestalt IT Video. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.